What's going on, everyone? This is Mark Bruce with Fit Strength Performance coming at you with another one. Um, what we're talking about today is, the pseudoscience of jump training. So, again, what do I mean by that? All athletes should be jumping, should be doing plyometrics. Plyometrics are, phenomenal at helping athletes, improve explosiveness, improve speed, improve power. It's a way to help them get stronger, because there's that force velocity curve that we're working with, so even moving light loads really fast or just body weight will help you get stronger. Um, but what are some of the issues I see with jump training? I work with a lot of basketball players and volleyball players, and they all want to jump. The number one myth with jump training is you have to jump higher. So there's different degrees of this topic, because if you are an athlete that never jumps and you want to jump higher, well, yeah, you're going to have to jump because there's a skill to it. There's you have to get comfortable. Your body has to get used to jumping. You have to see what you look like when you jump, and then we can break down what is necessary to help you jump higher. And then at the extreme spectrum, we have our high school, college level athletes. A lot of it's high school because once the kids get into college, they see where they're at. They do want to improve their performance, but they've reached their goal, or they've accepted where they're at. But we get these high school kids that want to jump higher, and all they do is jump. They just jump. They just jump. They're on a jump training program. They got jumping 4 days a week. They're at practice 4 days a week. They're on the tournament every weekend, and they're jumping, jumping, jumping. So jumping a lot can help you jump higher, but it's dependent on what else is going on. Those are the hugest errors that I see when it comes to jump training. Um, and then the next one is going to be performing the advanced plyos too early on. Okay, so we have our young kids who never jump that need to jump. We have our older kids who jump way too much, um, and then we have those programs and systems that are just too advanced for whomever they're working with, because there are progressions, there are regressions, there are things that we're looking at. So when we're looking at jump training, the three things that we look at Fit Strength Performance is we look at the learning phase, we look at the loading phase, and we look at the landing phase. So those are the three areas that we're focusing on. So for any athlete of any age, you need to learn how to jump. But that doesn't mean jump. That means do everything but jump. So what we do with our athletes is we take them out of their shoes, we look at their feet. What's going on? Can they balance on one leg? Can they hold a pre-jump position barefoot and not get bumped, not fall forward, not fall backwards? Because that means, when they go to jump, something's off in the chain, and they're developing compensations, which is going to hinder what they're doing. I did a drill with one of my athletes yesterday, and I put a specific constraint to help him move better, so he could feel some of his muscles, so he can find some pelvic orientation. And then I took that constraint away and had him perform the same movement, and it was not that great. So what that shows me is when we don't work on these different drills and exercises with added constraints, your body's going to go in a different direction, which is going to weaken your performance. You might be successful in terms of achieving a task, but you could be heightening your risk of an injury because you're not using specific muscles. Your hips are doing something that they shouldn't do. Although when you're on the volleyball court or basketball court, your body's going to do what it's going to do. If we can put you in specific constraints that allow for healthy movement and let your body doing what they're doing, your body's going to be less predisposed to do something compensatory that could lead to an injury. So you can play longer, you're not going to get injured, you're recovering better, and even perform higher because we've turned on muscles that you didn't have before. So more muscles that work are going to mean better performance. So when in that learning phase, right, what are you doing barefoot? And then when you load, get ready to jump in that jump position, what does your body look like? Do you round at the back? Do the knees go in? Does the foot collapse? Do you feel pain? Okay, so once we're looking at that, now we're peeling back that onion even more. Um, and then we want to look at the learning phase of movement. How do you squat? How do you hinge? How do you push? How do you pull? Because jumping is a kinetic movement from the ground up. Your kinetic chain, energy from your feet, from your calves, from your hamstrings, your quads, your glutes, your low back, your upper back, your arms, all that's working together synergistically to help you perform the task. Right, so that's what we need to focus on early on. And that doesn't matter if you're a sixth grader or if you're a 12th grader in high school. If you struggle with those things, well, we need to improve upon those before we advance to some aggressive, jump training movements. So typically, for the first phase, 3 months or 6 months, we're just learning how to load. We're learning how to jump over things or on things appropriately. We're working on single leg strength. We're working on unilateral strength. We're working on squats, hinges, pushes, pulls, and adding in all of those movements to give you a big toolbox to take your ceiling from here and to go from here. So next in our jump training, in our programming, we go into our loading phase. So our loading phase is going to be just, I like to put athletes sitting on a box so they can get into a good position, find their forefoot, heel slightly off, stabilize, and then jump. And I like to have them jump on a box first because it takes out the stress. When you jump over something or off of something and land, that's a lot of stress on the joints. So we have to factor in injury history. Were they coming off of their season? Are they knee deep into club or AAU? Because then they get a lot of volume in jumping. So if I jump onto a box, it's less stressful on the joints, but we're still working on hip extension. We're still working on, ankle flexion, ankle extension. We're still working on, speed again, but we're not causing so much stress in the body that you can't recover, because you do want to continue adding in blood flow and, a stimulus to the body so it does do something more appropriate. So it does get better, does recover, does improve your performance. So that's going to be our loading phase. The next is going to be that landing phase. So with that landing phase, now we're going to work on jumping over hurdles or on a box, off a box, because I need to see, can you handle the stress of when you jump high and then you land? Can your feet stabilize? Can your knees stabilize? Can your hips sink back and hinge, or are they going to dump over and you're falling back on your heels or you're falling so forward on your toes? So that's going to give me an understanding that maybe you need some eccentric strength, because then we can kind of solve the problem loading learning how to squat eccentrically, split squats eccentrically, tempoing it, trap bar deadlift eccentrically, RDLs eccentrically. That'll help you, give you some more eccentric control, because that's what does damage to athletes. When I'm sprinting and I stop really hard, that eccentric loading, that's a lot of stress in the joints, and then repositioning or transitioning out of that, re-accelerating out of it, that's how we're seeing these injuries, or landing or taking off. You've loaded so much eccentrically, put so much force in the ground, and then when you go to take off, something happens. So once we get past that loading phase or that landing phase, then we're going to see where you're at. How strong are you? How long until your season? What have you done past in your program? And then we'll focus more on the explosive phase. So that's where we may work on some rate of force development, true elastic movements, some like trap bar deadlift jumps, repeat hurdle jumps, resistance band overspeed jumps, or even overcoming isometrics, things that really challenge your system. But you notice the progression. You notice that an athlete just doesn't come in and then boom, you're right at the top. Because if you're right at the top, then everyone would start there and then everyone would be at their A game. But you need to progress. And there's going to be blips and bumps, and then you keep progressing. So that's why it's a weekly check-in. You're on monthly plans, and there's progressions. And some athletes, every 2 weeks they're changing what they're doing, or every 4 weeks they're changing what they're doing. But with jump training, there is a process. Excuse me. You don't just want to jump on a program, start rocking out on it, and not factoring everything else. You want to factor in on your movement, on your skill of jumping, on your strength, on your strength toolbox. your split squats, your lunges, little things like that. Because, there comes a time where you don't need to strength train a ton depending on your level. I got some guys who, they may lift 2 or 3 times a week because they're so skilled and they are naturally strong that they're doing other things that better support their performance and their health. But for younger athletes, strength training 2 to 3 times a week is very valuable because you're teaching your body how to do those things that are necessary to not only stay healthy in your sport, but to improve in the things you want to improve in. Think of a lunge. If you can do an eccentric split squat, that leads into a, forward lunge, which really mimics you loading really hard, whether you're going into sprint or you're stepping into a jump. So you're priming your muscles for that exact movement. So I hope that kind of debunks some of the pseudoscience of jump training, to reflect. You don't have to jump every day to jump higher. Recovery is key. You need to make sure that your body is recovering, because if you have a weekend basketball or volleyball tournament, doing a jump training program on Monday is not going to be valuable because your body's jumped a ton. So working on different things is going to be helpful once you get into the gym on Monday. And then you don't need to do super, super high level plyos. For many athletes, it's just building some functional strength and building the engine that way, getting stronger, learning how to load eccentrically, learning how to load isometrically, and then throwing in those plyos as you progressively increase through your program and get deeper into your program and closer to your season. So I hope that helped. Thanks for tuning in. Again, like, comment, share this with a teammate, to help spread the word of what we're trying to do to help athletes. Have a great day.